Imagine working hard your whole life to own a home in California, only to find out the rules have just changed and you're now stuck. The state has quietly passed new housing regulations that could leave millions of people trapped by 2026. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a renter, or an investor, these changes are about to shake up everything you thought you knew about housing in California. Stick around, because in this video, we'll break down the 10 major changes and reveal how they'll impact your future. Don't miss out on what could be the most important info of your life. Number 1. Rent control expansion. California's new housing rules for 2026 bring a significant expansion of rent control laws, which will now cover more properties across the state. Previously, only older rental buildings or those built before a certain date were subject to rent control. However, under the new regulations, even newly built properties in some areas will have to comply with strict rent caps. This means that landlords will be limited in how much they can increase rent each year. For renters, this could be seen as a positive step toward affordable housing, offering stability and protection from extreme rent hikes. However, the downside is that landlords may pull their properties from the rental market entirely. If they can't increase rent as much as they'd like, they might choose to sell or convert their properties into something else. This could lead to a decrease in available rental units, particularly in high-demand urban areas like Los Angeles and San Francisco. For many renters, this might result in fewer choices and a much more competitive market. What do you think? Does rent control help or hurt the overall housing situation? Number 2. Limits on short-term rentals. One of the most significant changes in California's 2026 housing regulations is the crackdown on short-term rentals like Airbnb. These types of rentals have exploded in popularity, allowing homeowners to make extra income by renting out their properties to tourists. However, California has introduced stricter restrictions, which could severely limit the number of properties available for short-term rentals, especially in popular tourist destinations like Los Angeles, San Diego, and coastal towns. Under these new rules, homeowners will need special permits to rent out their properties for short stays. The reasoning behind this change is simple. Cities are facing housing shortages, and many neighborhoods have become overwhelmed with vacation rentals that are pushing up rent prices and displacing long-term residents. With more homes being used for short-term rentals rather than as primary residences, local housing markets are tightening, making it even harder for people to find affordable places to live. The new rules aim to redirect housing stock back to the long-term rental market, creating more stability for renters. However, this change could have a significant financial impact on homeowners and investors who rely on short-term rentals for income. Property owners who've been making money from Airbnb may now face significant losses, especially in tourist-heavy areas. For some, this could even lead to forced sales of their properties, further exacerbating the housing supply issue. It's also important to consider how this might affect tourism in the state. Fewer short-term rental options could mean higher hotel prices and a less attractive environment for visitors, potentially hurting local economies that rely on travel dollars. While the goal is to increase long-term housing availability, the balance between regulation and freedom will be a contentious issue. Homeowners, renters, and local businesses will likely find themselves caught in the middle of this ongoing debate. Will these limits truly solve the housing crisis, or will they simply create new challenges for Californians? Number 3. New zoning laws for building more units. California's housing crisis has sparked the implementation of new zoning laws designed to encourage the construction of more housing, especially multifamily units. These changes require cities to overhaul their restrictive zoning regulations, which historically limited the number of properties that could be built in certain areas. Under the 2026 rules, cities with strict zoning codes will now have to allow more apartment buildings, duplexes, and triplexes in neighborhoods that were once reserved for single-family homes. The goal is to create more affordable housing options, reduce urban sprawl, and ensure that more people can live within city limits. This change could be a game changer for densely populated areas like Los Angeles and the Bay Area, where housing demand far exceeds supply. By allowing for more diverse housing types, these new rules make it easier to build multi-unit complexes that can accommodate families, young professionals, and others seeking affordable housing. The construction of high-density buildings near public transportation hubs could also promote sustainability by reducing the need for cars and encouraging residents to use buses, trains, or bikes. However, there are some major challenges to this approach. The push for more dense developments might face resistance from existing residents who don't want to see their neighborhoods transformed. The idea of turning suburban single-family home areas into multi-unit zones could result in neighborhood pushback from homeowners who fear that higher density construction will lead to congestion, noise, and a loss of the area's character. Moreover, local governments might struggle to manage this change effectively, especially when it comes to ensuring that infrastructure, such as roads, schools, and utilities, can handle the influx of new residents. While the long-term impact of these new zoning laws is still unclear, there's no doubt that they're designed to address California's housing shortage head-on. The success of this approach will depend on how well cities can balance growth with the quality of life for all residents, as well as how quickly they can implement these changes in a way that truly benefits the population. Number 4. Increased fees on new developments. Under California's new 2026 housing regulations, developers will face higher fees for constructing new buildings, particularly those designed for luxury or market-rate housing. These fees are intended to fund affordable housing projects and other community resources, aiming to balance the demand for high-end developments with the need for more accessible homes. Developers will now be required to contribute a significant percentage of their profits or construction costs into a fund that supports the creation of affordable housing units across the state. On the surface, this may seem like a good move for increasing the availability of affordable housing. The fees will directly fund housing projects designed for low-income residents, which is crucial in a state facing an affordability crisis. In areas like San Francisco or Silicon Valley, where the gap between luxury and affordable housing is vast, these fees could help bridge that divide by ensuring that more affordable options are available for working families. However, the increase in development fees could come with unintended consequences. For one, developers may pass these costs on to buyers and renters, which could drive up the overall price of new housing units. This means that the intended goal of making housing more affordable might be undermined, as market-rate homes could end up being priced higher than before. Furthermore, higher fees might discourage new construction projects in general, especially in areas where land is already scarce or expensive. Developers may opt out of building new units altogether, or look for ways to circumvent these new costs by downsizing projects or building fewer units. Additionally, smaller developers and those working on less profitable projects could be disproportionately affected by the new fees. This could slow down the pace of new housing developments in certain areas, ultimately making the housing crisis even worse. Local governments will need to carefully monitor how these fees impact the housing market, as they may inadvertently reduce the overall supply of homes when demand is already high. Number 5. Home ownership incentives for first-time buyers. In an effort to tackle the state's affordability crisis, California has introduced new homeownership incentives aimed specifically at first-time buyers. These programs are designed to make home ownership more accessible by offering financial assistance, lower interest rates, and reduced down payment requirements for eligible buyers. For many individuals and families who have long dreamed of owning a home in California but have been priced out of the market, these incentives may finally offer a glimmer of hope. The state is focusing on those who are struggling to save enough for a down payment or dealing with rising home prices in urban areas like Los Angeles, San Diego, and the Bay Area. First-time buyers can access grants, subsidized mortgage rates, and other benefits that could significantly reduce the upfront cost of purchasing a home. This is especially crucial in high-demand areas where home prices have soared, leaving many prospective buyers unable to afford the steep asking prices. The new programs aim to bridge the gap and ensure that those who are ready for homeownership aren't excluded from the market due to financial barriers. However, while these incentives sound promising, they come with certain limitations. First, there's a limited pool of funds available, meaning only a small percentage of first-time buyers will benefit from these programs. As demand for these incentives grows, it's likely that many potential homeowners will still find themselves shut out of the market due to the intense competition. Additionally, these programs might not be available in all regions of the state, particularly in highly sought-after locations where home prices remain well beyond what most first-time buyers can afford. Another concern is that while the programs help buyers initially, they don't address the long-term affordability of homes. Even with incentives, monthly mortgage payments may still be too high for some buyers, particularly if interest rates rise in the future. The incentive programs may offer temporary relief, but without a broader supply of affordable homes, California's housing crisis will likely persist. Number 6. Renters have more legal protections. One of the most notable aspects of California's new housing laws is the expanded legal protections for renters. These protections aim to provide greater security for tenants by making it more difficult for landlords to evict them or raise rent by unreasonable amounts. This is particularly important in a state where renters often face sudden rent hikes and eviction threats, leaving them vulnerable in an already tight housing market. The new laws will limit the grounds under which tenants can be evicted and will extend notice periods, giving renters more time to find alternative housing. Additionally, these protections will make it harder for landlords to unfairly raise rents, especially in areas with rent control. The goal is to prevent displacement of long-term renters, ensuring they aren't forced out due to gentrification or rising property values. For many tenants, this new level of legal certainty can make a significant difference, offering peace of mind that they won't face sudden, unjustified rent increases or eviction notices. However, these protections also come with potential downsides. Landlords, particularly in rent-controlled areas, might see their returns on investment shrink, which could lead some to exit the rental market altogether. Landlords might decide to sell their properties, convert them into condominiums, or limit rental availability in response to the stricter regulations. In the long run, this could contribute to an overall housing shortage, especially in already densely populated urban centers like San Francisco or Los Angeles. Moreover, while the new laws help renters in the short term, they may also discourage new housing investments. Builders and property investors might be less inclined to enter the rental market if they face tight rent controls and more tenant-friendly regulations. In turn, this could reduce the supply of rental units, making it even harder for newcomers to find housing. Although renters will benefit from the protections, the balance between securing tenant rights and maintaining a healthy rental market will continue to be a complex issue in the coming years. Number 7. Restrictions on housing development near environmental zones. California's new housing rules also introduce restrictions on housing development near sensitive environmental zones such as wildlife reserves, coastal areas, and floodplains. These zones are often protected due to their ecological significance, and the new laws aim to preserve these areas by limiting the construction of new housing nearby. While the intent is to safeguard the environment, these restrictions could further tighten California's already strained housing market, making it even harder for developers to find suitable land for new projects. The impact of these restrictions will be most strongly felt in desirable locations along the coast and in natural landscapes that attract both residents and tourists. Cities like Santa Barbara, Santa Cruz, and parts of the Northern California coast will be significantly impacted, as developers may no longer be able to build on land that was previously available for housing. As a result, the housing supply in these regions could shrink, especially in areas that are already experiencing high demand. In addition, while these measures help preserve California's natural beauty, they could also contribute to the housing crisis by restricting the availability of land. The more land that is off-limits for development, the less room there is to build the number of homes needed to accommodate the state's growing population. Developers might be forced to turn to less desirable or more remote areas, where land is cheaper, but access to jobs, transportation, and amenities is more limited. This could lead to further urban sprawl as people are pushed out of city centers and into more distant suburbs.
Another consequence of these restrictions is that it could make housing even more expensive in regions near protected environmental zones. With less available land for development, the competition for existing homes could become more intense, driving prices up even further. For buyers and renters looking for homes in scenic or coastal areas, these restrictions could make affordable housing almost impossible to find. Balancing environmental protection with the need for more housing will undoubtedly be one of the state's most challenging tasks moving forward.
Number 8. Affordable housing mandates for developers. Under California's 2026 housing rules, developers will now be required to allocate a percentage of their projects for affordable housing. This mandate forces construction companies to dedicate a portion of new developments to lower-income residents, ensuring that some of the state's most vulnerable populations have access to decent housing. These mandates are part of a broader effort to tackle the growing issue of income inequality and the housing shortage in California, especially in high-demand urban areas like Los Angeles and San Francisco. The new rules specify that developers of large residential projects, particularly in urban areas, must set aside a certain number of units for affordable housing. This could include apartments, condominiums, and multifamily units priced below market rates. By integrating affordable units within luxury developments or mixed-use complexes, these mandates aim to create more inclusive communities where residents of all income levels can live in the same neighborhoods. In addition, these initiatives could lead to more diversity in housing options, making it easier for working-class families, teachers, and healthcare workers to afford to live near their jobs, rather than being pushed out to distant suburbs. However, while these mandates sound beneficial, they come with potential challenges. For developers, meeting these requirements could increase construction costs, as affordable units typically bring in less revenue than market-rate homes. As a result, developers might pass these costs on to buyers and renters, driving up the overall price of housing in the area. Some developers may also seek to downsize projects, reducing the total number of units built, or look for ways to bypass the mandates by offering cash payments or contributing to affordable housing funds instead of building the units themselves. The effectiveness of this approach will largely depend on how well local governments enforce the mandates and ensure that developers don't simply opt for easy workarounds. Without proper oversight, these rules could fail to produce the significant increase in affordable housing that California desperately needs. While the intention is to create a more balanced housing market, the ultimate impact may be limited if developers find ways to skirt these requirements. Number 9. Increased property taxes for high-value homes. California's 2026 housing laws also bring increased property taxes for high-value homes. This new tax rule targets wealthy homeowners who own properties worth over a certain threshold, requiring them to pay a higher rate than the general population. The goal is to raise funds for affordable housing programs and public infrastructure, as well as to address the wealth gap in housing access. For many, this will mean paying more in taxes on their multi-million-dollar estates, which could drastically affect their annual expenses, and in some cases, force them to reconsider their investments in California real estate. For the state, this increased property tax will serve as a major source of revenue for building affordable housing, funding public services, and addressing California's housing crisis. By taxing the wealthiest homeowners, the state hopes to redistribute some of that wealth to support those struggling to find affordable housing. The revenue generated could help fund construction projects, public housing, or rental assistance programs for lower-income residents. In essence, this tax is designed to shift some of the burden from renters and lower-income individuals to those who can afford to pay higher taxes. However, while this increased taxes may seem fair to some, it could lead to unintended consequences. Wealthy homeowners in high-demand areas like Silicon Valley and Beverly Hills might decide to sell their homes or leave the state, especially if the new tax burden becomes too great. High-net-worth individuals could choose to relocate to areas with lower property taxes, which could reduce California's luxury home market. In turn, this could lead to a slowdown in real estate sales and a potential decrease in home values in high-end neighborhoods. Moreover, these changes might discourage future real estate investments, as potential buyers may be wary of facing high taxes on their property. While the increased taxes on high-value homes aim to fund solutions to California's housing shortage, it remains to be seen whether the policy will succeed in encouraging more affordable housing options, or if it will simply drive the wealthy elite out of the state, further shrinking the market for high-end properties.
Number 10. Stricter environmental standards for new housing. California's push for sustainability in green building practices is taking center stage with the introduction of stricter environmental standards for new housing developments. Under the 2026 regulations, all new residential projects must meet more rigorous environmental requirements, including energy efficiency, water conservation, and the use of sustainable materials. These guidelines aim to reduce the carbon footprint of new homes and ensure that California's housing stock is more eco-friendly and in line with the state's climate goals. These new rules will make housing developments more environmentally conscious, encouraging the use of solar panels, energy-efficient windows, and advanced insulation to minimize energy use. Additionally, builders will need to adhere to stricter water usage regulations, which could involve installing low-flow plumbing fixtures, water-efficient landscaping, and rainwater collection systems. These measures are part of California's broader efforts to address the environmental impact of urban sprawl and contribute to the state's ambitious goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and conserving natural resources. While the shift to greener housing sounds like a win for sustainability, it also introduces higher costs for developers. The price of meeting these stricter standards could significantly increase the cost of construction, leading to higher prices for new homes and apartments. For first-time buyers or families hoping to purchase affordable homes, this could mean paying more for a property that incorporates these eco-friendly features. In areas already facing housing shortages, these higher construction costs could discourage developers from building new homes altogether, further exacerbating the housing crisis. Moreover, while these environmental standards benefit the planet in the long run, they don't directly address the immediate issue of housing affordability. As builders face increased costs, the end result may be fewer new homes on the market, price hikes in new developments, and potential delays in housing construction. The challenge will be finding a balance between environmental goals and affordable housing needs, ensuring that sustainability doesn't come at the expense of accessibility for those most in need of housing.
California's housing crisis is a multifaceted challenge, and the new rules set to take effect in 2026 are an ambitious attempt to address the state's growing shortage of affordable housing. Whether it's rent control expansions, stricter environmental standards, or more support for first-time buyers, these changes will have a significant impact on the state's housing landscape. However, the true effectiveness of these laws will depend on how they balance the need for affordable housing with the need for sustainable growth and economic stability. While some policies offer hope for renters and buyers, others may inadvertently drive up costs or discourage new developments altogether. The road ahead for California's housing market will be challenging, but by staying informed and engaged, we can navigate these changes together. What do you think about California's new housing rules? Will they solve the crisis, or will they create more problems? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you're interested in more insights into California's housing market, don't forget to check out our previous video for more details. We put a lot of effort into creating these videos to keep you informed, so please support us by subscribing to our channel. It's just one click, and it helps us bring more valuable content to you.